This is a classic horror map from the year 2016. It is truly one of the childhood nightmares for many people. I still remember one day, a few years ago. By chance, I clicked on a video about this map on a Minecraft news page. At that time, my young mind was badly scared. This map is called No Words. It also became one of those childhood fears that stayed in my heart for a long time. Many people probably still remember this map. Some people also translated its name as The Silent Lambs, but in reality, this map has no connection to that title at all. The creator of this map was a German author, and at that time, he was new to map making. In this map, we play as a mute man who is deeply obsessed with music. Through music and dreams, he experiences very terrifying events. Behind all of this, there is also a strong sense of mystery. Now, let me take you back to this childhood classic story. The main character's name is Richard. One day, after finishing work and returning home, he did not see his wife, Amini, and his daughter, Cassandra, as usual. On the table, there was a note from them. It said that Amini had taken their daughter to celebrate a birthday, and they would not return for a long time. Seeing this, Richard decided to listen to some music. He has always been a person who is deeply obsessed with music. After that, the player needs to find a record by James B. Sum and begin exploring the apartment. Richard's home looks old and worn out. The paint on the walls is peeling off. Water is leaking through the cracks in the walls. Even the bathroom tiles look dirty. The kitchen light is broken. It seems that Richard is not very wealthy. In every corner of the house, we can see many records and magazines, but none of them are the one we need. Surprisingly, this old apartment has 2 floors. The space on the second floor is not small. Although there are 3 doors on the second floor, 2 of them cannot be opened. We enter the only room that is accessible, and inside we finally find the record. Richard sees a piano in the corner and decides to play a piece of music. He sits down at the piano and begins to play. From this, we can clearly see how deeply he loves music. The piece he plays is from Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Beethoven created this piece for the woman he loved. However, later he paid a heavy price for that relationship. At this moment, Richard is completely lost in his own world. Next, he goes to the living room to listen to some music by James B. Sum. When the record is played, a piece of classical but very heavy and rough music begins to sound. At the same time, there is the scratchy noise of the record player. This fits perfectly with the dark style of the map. The main character, Richard, also starts to complain about how old and broken his apartment is. The whole piece of music lasts for 1 minute and 35 seconds. The first half is heavy, filled with madness and sadness. There are a few seconds of calm in the middle. The second half sounds a little more pleasant. Then suddenly, the lights go out. Richard does not know what has happened, but things begin to change. The player finds himself standing in a long hallway. At the end, inside a door, there is a sign. It feels like Richard's inner thoughts. Every time a new door is opened, the hallway changes. The messages on the signs behind the doors also change. What did Richard do? The signs keep reminding him that everything is his fault. Soon, a new hallway appears. When you walk inside, it looks like an office. In the empty room, there is a desk standing in the center. On the desk, there is a piece of paper with a news report. The news says that in October 1954, a car accident happened on Palmerton Street. Inside the car were 2 parents and an 8-year-old child. The parents died in the accident, but the child survived. At that time, the child's father was at home and knew nothing about the accident. Witnesses said that the husband of the dead woman had a mental illness. After that, words appear on the wall. Some ask Richard if he is happy. Some tell him to keep playing music. When Richard reads the news, he cannot believe that it is describing himself. Everything happens too suddenly. Another new hallway appears. On the door is the name of Richard's daughter. This hallway has 2 paths. You can hear the sound of a little girl laughing. On the wall, it says in English, "Watch your step." On the other side, there is a picture of a head pierced by an arrow. If you open the door on the left, there is only a chair. If you enter the door on the right, the loop starts again. You see a child slide past in the hallway, but when you look ahead, there is nothing there. Richard keeps checking the doors. During this time, a brand new path appears. He walks through the new door. The scene looks the same as before, but now there is a red stain on the floor that looks like tomato juice. The door on the left side of the hallway is empty. The door on the right leads to the same loop again. This time, there is an extra note in the loop. The note is called My Father. It is homework written by Cassandra. She writes about Richard like this: "My father is devoted to music. His music makes my mother very happy. At least least it seems that way. But because of his work, he almost has no time to stay with me. Even so, I love him very much. I hope his music can also make him happy. At the end, the teacher's comment says that Cassandra should bring her father to school. But she never did. Something had gone wrong in her family. Richard continues to check the doors. Suddenly, the lights explode as if caused by a supernatural force. In the hallway, overturned chairs appear. A brand new path opens in front of him. Inside, there is only a dark and gloomy bed. It reminds me of that scary hotel. Richard begins to realize that all of this is connected to the happy life he once had at the very beginning. Richard never expected the nightmare to come so suddenly. It felt like in one moment, all the happiness disappeared. Just like in the next second of a video, everything changes. The scene shifts. Richard arrives in another new hallway. There is a baby's face that suddenly appears, and it is very frightening. At this point, he only feels tired and completely broken. Here, he finds a letter. It is written by someone named Sam. Sam tells Richard that loving music is fine, but he should not forget his family. We are not completely sure who Sam is. Maybe he is Richard's friend. Later, Sam says he can stay by Richard's side, but Richard replies in a very angry way. He tells him to be quiet. As he keeps walking, he sees the same hallway again, but now there is a room connected to it. Inside the room, there is a piano. There is also a new note. The note says that after the car accident, Richard's daughter hoped he would spend time with her, but Richard still treated his surviving daughter with coldness. He also did not want to talk about his dead wife anymore. Then everything turns black. Richard appears in a hallway filled only with pianos. Now he realizes that he is falling deeper and deeper into this situation. While walking, he finds another note without a name. Cassandra writes that she wants her father to play with her. She also says that she has not eaten for a long time, but Richard responds with impatience and anger. Even after his wife's death, his obsession with music does not stop. This obsession slowly turns into something unhealthy and extreme. Richard enters a small space. There are only a few switches around him. Each time he presses a switch, a door opens. Inside these doors are the words, fear, pressure, death. When he presses the last switch, everything goes dark again. A voice tells Richard, "You are a failed father." After that, he appears once again in the same hallway as before, but this time, the door on the left looks broken and unstable. He enters the room. Seeing the familiar place, he falls into deep memories. He remembers when he first met Emily. They both loved music, and soon they fell in love. Not long after that, they got married. Later, their daughter Cassandra was born. Even though Richard could not speak, their life together was still very happy. But because of music, Richard slowly began to ignore his family's feelings. Only Emily spent time with their daughter. People started to call Richard crazy. It was a home with very little communication. Emily sometimes wished she had never met Richard because he only cared about that cursed music. He even thought music was more important than people. Richard continues to walk through the empty hallway. Words appear on the wall. They tell him not to care about his family and to keep focusing on his music. Even though all of this is leading him in the wrong direction, he keeps going. Finally, Richard sees the one thing he never wanted to see. At the end of the hallway, there are no more words telling him to continue his music. When he turns back, a new path appears. The whole scene starts to turn upside down. In this strange area, we discover another room. Inside, he finds a note called Harrow. It has words written by Richard and Emily when they first met. They fell in love at first sight and had many dreams about their future. At the beginning, Emily actually liked Richard's music. Richard continues to explore the looping hallway, but on the way, a lot of tomato juice suddenly appears everywhere. At the same time, loud orchestral music starts playing. This reminds me of the fear controlled by salad. Richard's mind seems close to breaking at this moment. In the end, he stops beside a gramophone. Richard turns on the gramophone. The familiar music of James B. Sum plays from it, but the music slowly begins to fall apart. It becomes rough and unclear. Then, everything turns completely dark. Richard wakes up. Was everything just a dream? He looks at the place around him. It feels both familiar and strange. He finds a note at the door. The note tells Richard to look behind him. When he turns around, he sees two armor stands, one big and one small, hanging as if they committed suicide. Richard understands that he could not handle the pain. He killed himself along with his daughter. He is also affected by Emily's ghost. Emily wants Richard to see how miserable he has become. She keeps complaining about him. She says she is coming to find him. In the end, nothing seems to happen. Is everything finally over and safe? Richard walks out of the door. Looking at the familiar hallway, he realizes he is still trapped in the loop. In the next second, he faces punishment. Richard suddenly wakes up from the piano. It turns out everything was just a dream. There is a knock on the door downstairs. Emily and his daughter have come back home. Thinking about the dream, it felt both real and crazy. Richard knows it is time for him to change. He cannot ignore his family like he did in the dream. The map ends here. Looking at the whole map, it seems to tell the story of Richard's dream. Because of his obsession with music, he ignored his family. In the end, a car accident happened. He did not reach his wife in time. Some words on the wall in the map say not to let Richard save Emily. So in that car accident, his wife might have survived. The dream also mentions that Richard cannot speak. No one really cares whether he can speak or not. Because he cannot speak, this family lacks communication. But there must be a reason why Richard and Emily stayed together until now. Since he cannot speak, his personality is lonely and short-tempered. After the car accident, people say he has mental problems. Because of this, he becomes deeply obsessed with music. In the end, Richard wakes up from the dream. He decides to change himself and care about his family again, just like when he first met Emily. But I have another guess. Maybe the dream reflects reality. Maybe Richard has been in hell all this time, repeating this dream again and again. Finally, he understands his mistakes and is reborn. Anyway, this is the end of the explanation of this map. If you have a better interpretation, feel free to leave a comment. There is also another message version of this map, made by the translator we know, Luo Bo Huan Yu. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching until the end. If you liked it, please give me a free subscribe. See you in the next video.